Good morning, friends and colleagues of the insurance industry. My name is Ariel Rivera, and I am your host of Fun Insurance Solutions. Listen, 2021, it's over. Oh my God, what a crazy but wonderful year it was. 2022 is going to be amazing, and I wish each and every one of you lots of health, lots of joy, lots of business, and lots of love for you, your family, your team, and everyone around you. Now, I wanted to replay this episode that we recorded at the beginning of the year with Amy Blaschka. Amy Blaschka is a social media ghostwriter and she's also a Forbes magazine contributor. So she writes for Forbes. When we recorded this episode at the beginning of last year, it blew my mind. I mean, the way she writes, the way she speaks, how she inspires us, I believe she will give you the right guidance and the proper tips for you to jumpstart 2022 and make it your best year ever. Now, before we get there, I want to thank our sponsors, Viva Virtual Assistants. Remember, when you need virtual assistant to help your agency grow, reach out to Viva Virtual Assistants. Now, let's make 2022 our best year ever. Saludos amigos y amigas. My name is Ariel Rivera and I am your host of Fun Insurance Solutions. As you can probably guess, this episode is going to be in English because I'm bringing somebody very special to me, somebody who I really admire and somebody who I encourage everyone to follow. She's a social media ghostwriter. She's also a Forbes.com contributor. But more importantly, she is somebody who's going to help each and every one of us have an amazing 2021. If you have not read her article about how to skip resolutions and get straight into your goals for 2021, I encourage you to do it. And we're going to post everything about it on our social media. But more importantly, listen to this episode. It will change your perspective about New Year's resolution. It will give you a huge jump start to your year, and I'm sure you're going to love it. So let's not delay this any longer, and let's just start having some fun. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, ladies and gentlemen, and dear friends and colleagues from all around the insurance industry and all around the world. Every professional that listens to this podcast is going to have so much fun, but more importantly, it's going to learn a lot. My name is Ariel Rivera, and I am the host of Fun Insurance Solutions. I'm super excited today because I have with me somebody who I admire a lot. I follow her, so I'm kind of like her groupie, so please don't make fun of me because of that. Her name is Amy Blaschka. Did I say that right, Amy?
Yes.
Perfect. Amy Blaschka. Amy is a social media ghostwriter. She's the author of the newsletter Illuminate Me. So I encourage everyone to, subscribe to her newsletter because it's a beautiful newsletter. She's also a contributor, and that's how I found out about her of Forbes magazine. So she writes for Forbes.com. Those of you who don't know what Forbes is, that's basically one of the biggest global social businesses, magazines for all business professionals. So with no more introduction, because she doesn't need much, let's welcome Amy Blaschka. Amy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ariel. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. You have no idea how excited I am about this episode, and I'm looking forward to it. But you know what? Before we dig in really, really deep. So it's Friday. You had a beautiful week. It's already 7:00 at night. Dinner is served. You're ready to go. I have a question for you. It is, what's your drink of choice? Wine, beer, seltzer, liquor, or just water?
So mostly water.
Okay.
Though if you're asking me an alcoholic one, I would go with the choices. I would say wine.
Nice.
Red or white? Beer. I like a nice cab, like a good rich cab. Like reds are my favorite. But when it's warm out, I like Pinot Grigio. So nice. I'm not a Chardonnay girl. I don't know. I just like, I'm not the oaky buttery. That's not my thing. I like something a little crisper, so that's where I'd go.
That's awesome. I'm a huge Cab fan. So I love I'm a Cab fan. My wife is as well. Usually, I'm Puerto Rican. So for me, it's rum, rum and Coke. That's kind of like my go-to drink. So, But it's awesome. I'm glad you like cabs. So maybe one day we can share one together. So for
Cheers
sure.
together
Yes.
someday, one of these days,
I
right?
know. I
I'm
know.
very much looking forward to that.
Cheers. There you go. There you go. All right. So in Spanish, we say, I always start my podcast, I love listening to people's story. And I know your story is amazing, especially because you're a social media ghostwriter. And I mean, not many people know what that is, to a point that actually, so my wife, she's an attorney, licensed attorney in Puerto Rico, but she handles all agency and businesses, and she blogs also. So when I told her, listen, this is the social media ghostwriter that's coming to the podcast, she's like, that is awesome. I want to be a social media ghostwriter. So in Spanish, I always say, let's open el baúl de los recuerdos, which in English would mean, let's go, take me down a couple of minutes down memory lane and tell me what, who is Amy Blaschka and what brought you so far?
Well, thank you. And I love it. And I love that your wife was like, oh, that's cool. Cause most people are like, wait, that's a thing, a social media ghostwriter. I was like, yeah, it's a thing. So, for me, I was that kid, the creative, quiet child. Really, no one believes me that meets me today, but I was extremely shy. Right. I
Wow.
was always the kid in the corner. I love to paint. I love to draw. I love to write stories. It was really more, I was in that observation mode, right? Where
Okay.
and I still do, I take everything in.
Like a
And then my
sponge.
brain kind of works in weird ways to kind of make these disparate connections. So
Okay.
I'm always searching for connection and always searching for like, how does that connect to that? And so it started as a young child. And if you would have asked me as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up, Amy? It was, other than being like a vet because I loved animals, right? It was,
That's my daughter, by
I
the
want to
way.
be a writer. I want to be an artist, that sort of thing. I knew I wanted to express myself. I'm an expressive person. So when I finally went to college, to university, it was like, I knew I wanted to study something that had to do with creativity and kind of telling a story, that sort of thing. And I kind of vacillated between visual arts and filmmaking and communications.
Okay.
And because I always loved to write, but I also am a very visual person, right?
Ah.
And the idea of bringing a story to life in film, I was like, well, that's cool. That's what I want to do. So I did get my degree in visual arts and film and media. And minor ended up being communications and it all fits together.
Yes.
But, shockingly, out of school, I couldn't just get a job as a filmmaker. It was like, oh, okay. So I was like, well, what's close? What's close to that? And it's kind of what started my journey is what I call agency land, right? Where I get a job in a small agency right out of school. And I went to school in San Diego at UC San Diego.
Beautiful.
Was there a few years. So marketing, advertising, a little PR. It was a small agency. So it was great because you kind of had your fingers into lots of different things. And then I moved back up to the Bay Area where I basically grew up and still live here. Okay. And in San Francisco, I got a job at Young and Rubicam Advertising. I was there a few years and just, I really believe in sort of things kind of happen for a reason. One of our sister companies called Landor Associates was having a Halloween party. Okay. And it was like, oh, let's bring the sister company over. So we went and kind of this thing where they were all about branding. And this was a long time ago. Okay. But I'm like, wait, that's a thing? Like, oh my gosh, it's you're really there helping creating the strategy and you create every touch point, whether it's verbal or visual. Whoa, I want to work here. Well, wow. Eventually I did. I was a branding consultant there for, I think, 4 years. I moved on to another agency doing something similar, but that same idea about telling a story of, at the time, it was a product or a company, right? Coke, General Mills, those types of things. Or, Sauza Tequila was a client of mine too. So it really fun kind of doing that. And I loved that. I love that element of kind of that spark of kind of what differentiates them and kind of sets them apart and attracts people to them and everything about them. So I did that for a while. And then I got pregnant with our first daughter. And at the time I was commuting from where I live in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area into San Francisco. And it's quite a commute. And then I was traveling all over the country, which was, it sounds very sexy, but and when you could travel, but it was you were in the airport, you were in a cab because Uber didn't exist at that point, right? Or you were in there, a boardroom or something presenting and then kind of reversing that. So I knew after we had children, it was like, this isn't going to really work. So I did something no one thought I would do. I stayed home for a while with the daughter. And then I think she was about 14, 15 months old. We both decided we need to talk to people our own age. Okay. And so I started looking and, what else can I do? And took what seems like a very huge detour, ended up just interviewing for this travel and tourism job. And it was running what is known as a destination marketing organization. As the CEO, and though I had never worked in that kind of a nonprofit, and I hadn't worked in tourism before, was like, well, wait a minute. This is about branding. This is about telling the story of a place, right? And attracting people to it and kind of rinse and repeat and do that. Plus the bonus is everybody that works in hospitality, travel, tourism, they're all very much people. They're all about service. They're all about, let's have a wonderful experience. So I interviewed for that job. I got that job. I was in that job for probably almost a decade. And a large part was because of the people, but really it was that string of kind of telling the story of something. And, all along the way, I still love to write. I still had that creative Amy in me, but I was getting farther and farther and farther away from her. The more I was doing, great, you're running a business, which is fantastic. Just because you can do something or you're good at something doesn't mean that is what fulfills you. Yes. So it took a while, but I left that job. I still consulted with travel and tourism entities, but I was doing things that were more operationally driven. So the last thing I did before sort of switching over to become a writer full-time was an organizational audit, which can sound either really sexy to you if that's kind of your jam.
Those are painful.
Yeah. So it was, it's good, it was great. And I'm happy to have done that. But I knew, I'm like, if I do one more of these, I'm going to shrivel up and die. I really felt that way. I'm an expressive person. I need to be able to have an outlet for that. So about that time, or a little before that, LinkedIn, which had previously been just sort of their self-appointed influencers, titans of business, right, industry, where they would publish things. They opened it up to the general public to be able to put out your own content. And, I started to write more. I had written, never really sharing it with anyone because you're like, oh my God, I have to put myself out there. Okay. It started on LinkedIn, and slowly it was sort of that, like doing that. And I followed people that I admired, the people that, the way they wrote and what they, kind of sharing what mattered most to them. I'm like, that's the way to do it. And I reached out to one of the influencers, and just was like, gosh, I just love everything that you're putting out there. I feel so aligned with it. This is great. And we became friends. And, at some point he's like, Amy, he's like, you're a writer. You need to write. And, it's funny when somebody else gives you permission, suddenly you're like, oh,
something but inside of you.
Could I? So long story short is, I got over myself. I changed the story that I had been telling myself, and I started to put my own content out there, and that attracted people. And I figured out one of my sort of gifts is to find that little spark in someone else. And help them shine a light on it, because it's so hard when you're trying to kind of talk about what you do and to know it. And it's so much easier for an outside person that's not married to you or in your family or, as an employee or someone to say, no, this is it. And it's something I naturally do. I see the best in people. I tend to be a positive person and that expressiveness, and I'm attracted to that. And so I delight in kind of finding that spark in others. So it was natural that my writing would kind of lend itself to that sort of thing. And combined with my love of telling a story, with the idea, I'm a visual person, so my words always will have that element to them, expressive. And then using that branding experience to now I'm helping brand people, right? Wow. Leaders, either helping them sort of craft their stories and finding that clarity and helping them stay in their wheelhouse to really shine in their area of expertise. So that is my very nonlinear career path, but I am thrilled, even at a late stage in my life, to actually be doing exactly what I should be doing. I call it putting your talents to their highest and best use.
Yes. And I love it because first of all, I can tell how you live it up so much. And that's amazing. And you can even see it like when people read you, they can see you. They can see your kindness, your empathy, and it's all there. Like there's nothing, and that's one thing that I truly love and appreciate. And I'm a huge fan of Donald Miller from Storybrand. So I've been following Donald for the last, I would say probably 2 to 3 years. I read his book. I mean, I took his university. I mean, I'm a huge fan, and it actually has changed the way I think and the way I see my business, because insurance, we can talk all day. I mean, I can tell you personal auto policy, homeowners insurance. I mean, I don't want to bore you to death with that, but the story about us and who am I, where do I come from? What's my agency built to a point that, you know, people will listen to it and say, huh, I want to do business with that person because, you know, I like their story. Let's just put it that way. So it's awesome. It makes me happy that, you know, you made it. It took you a while to get there, but you know what? Everything happens for a reason. And now it's even better. So
that's right. Well, and, you know, to that point about story, you know, I think people think, oh, no, I have to stay on point. I have to be businesslike. I have to do this. You know, we are humans. We connect human to human. And the way we connect is through emotion. And emotion comes from being genuine. Emotion comes from sharing your story, from kind of where you started, where you are, not just the wins, not just the Instagram worthy boats, models and bottles. You know, it's the struggles too, because people go, oh, they connect with that. They're like, oh, okay. That person's not perfect. They're like me. Okay. Or I could do maybe what they're doing because, wow, they overcame this. And you're willing to share that with somebody. That's what truly connects, right? Those are the stories. It's the emotional component. It's not the logical stats. It's not the pushing your sales down somebody's throat. That repels people. You want to attract people. And the way to do that is being genuine and real and telling them a story. Absolutely. They know, like, and trust you then. That's how that works.
That's true. That's true. And like you just said, you know, numbers can be pushed down, but, you know, whether people are happy or not, or whether you're genuine or not, it makes a huge difference. And I tell that everybody in sales, you have to be yourself. So I can try and speak as perfect as I can English, but at the end of the day, I still have an accent. It's who I am. So it's not going to change. So, you know, be yourself, be genuine, and, you know, life will come to you beautiful. All right. So, Amy, the reason we're here is I want to talk with you about New Year's resolution. Now, you wrote an amazing piece, and I invite every one of our listeners to go look for that piece. And that in that piece, you talk about, you know, the problem with resolution is that, you know, making a resolution is easy. Keeping the resolution is the hard part. So, and you give some tips that I love. And it's funny, I wish I would have read that article before. One of the tips you give is about take a word, right, for the whole year. And that's the word you're going to use for the year. My word for 2020, it was health. So my health got so affected during 2017 because of Hurricanes Irma and Maria. And I had so much, you know, so many claims and so much work that it took me up to 2020 to actually get it back.
Wow.
So, and that was my word all over, but I never thought about it. This year, my word is growth. And I encourage everyone, once they listen to you, choose a word. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about that. New Year's resolution. We want to have the best year ever, no matter what, you know, comes to us.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, I wrote that because I'm one of those people, I think most people have the best of intentions. So when you're right around the new year, especially closing out a year like 2020, yikes, right? Everybody's like, bring on 2021, right? You're all right. And you're in that heady glow of like, oh, hope and this, and I'm going to be better me in every way. And you make these resolutions like, you know, like let's lose the COVID-19, right? Let's lose those pounds. Let's do this or whatever it is. But, you know, research shows that we're just kind of setting ourselves up to fail because by February, I mean, typically sooner, you know, people, they fall off the wagon and then you end up feeling crappy, which is, why would you do that to yourself? So, you know,
you feel it's a favor. That's what's happened. So,
I stopped making resolutions a long time ago. And I had 3 things in that article, but that one that you said about picking a word to guide you, I personally have done this for the last several years. And it forces you to really have clarity on what matters most to you moving forward. You know, you can do that by looking back, like you said, like going, oh my gosh, my health suffered in this. I can't do anything until I have this. So that's great that you sat down and went, okay, that's it. For me, I mean, sometimes it's just fun stuff. Sometimes it's not. So in the past, one of my words was badass. Now, that's an adjective, right? So, but to me, it's what does that represent? For me, that was about being fearless, right? And for so long, I hid behind sort of businessy Amy when in fact creative Amy needed to be there. And when you're in your zone, when you just feel that sort of thing. And for me, it was like, I feel badass. And I used it, I forget which year it was in the past several, but so much so that my friends came to call me Badass Blaschka. My mother she'd see like there's a book by Jen Sincero called You're a Badass. She took a picture and my mom texted me the picture. And for my birthday, awesome. My sisters got me a little like necklace that said badass because it was just really, it was not to be sort of snarky, but it was about feeling a certain way. And for me, that represented being fearless. And so everything that I did, I just would have that reminder. And I said I'm a visual person. So that word front and center in my office. Every day I saw that. So it'd remind me, that I had that. And I think that's really important is whatever word you choose, let that be your guide. So this year, my word is illuminate, right?
Nice.
And for me, that's quite a visual word too, isn't it? So to me, it has several meanings, right? So obviously you're shining a light, which I love to do for other people. You can light a path for someone. It also is about clarity, right? Illuminating someone's like, like it's suddenly there. So those are all positive things. Yes. But the idea is you pick a word to guide you for the year. You have to get clear on what matters most to you. And then more importantly, you use that word as sort of your North Star and you sort of align your activities, the people you associate with, whatever. So everything supports that, right? And it becomes this sort of litmus test that, okay, does this illuminate and make me kind of go in that direction or does it not? And pretty soon you're like, no, it doesn't, or yes, it does. That's so right. More of that, less of the stuff that doesn't. So it's, I think for me too, what was really helpful in having a word wasn't just keeping it to myself. It was sharing it with somebody, sharing it publicly, sharing it with your family, sharing it, for me, like literally making a visual and having it in front of me, having it on my phone, using it again and again and again. It becomes this sort of theme and rally cry for you for that year ahead. And, no one's perfect, but if you start to veer off course from it, you can always come back. Yes. And, so that's, I think, a way better alternative than making some resolutions that you'll end up feeling crappy about. So this can help you sort of stay on track. So that was one of them for sure.
Yes, you had three of them, actually.
We had three of them.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about the other two?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Especially the last one. I wanted the next thing I wanted to jump on. And before we jump on that one, I want to tell you, writing the word, it's awesome. And I do it. However, I never share it. So I'm definitely taking that advice. And I encourage everyone to take it just because when you share the word, especially with your family, your team, for us that, we're agency owners, then we can all align, like you just said. And it's amazing because when I thought about health for last year, that was all about me, about doing more exercise, eating better and doing all that stuff. But thinking about this year, how am I going to share my world, my word with the world, especially my family, so we can all move forward? I mean, that's amazing. So definitely share it.
Most definitely.
The third thing is, and this one just impressed me, this is the third one. I want to go back to the first one if we have time.
Okay.
The third one was, and I have not done this, all right? So I'm going to be honest, I have not done this yet. Write a letter to your future self. Man, that's awesome. What is that all about? That's super cool.
Yeah. So, I've heard sort of this riff off of, people, what advice would you give to your younger self? But this is different. So this is, writing something to your future self. So it can be in lieu of a resolution. It can be, what do you want to happen by, New Year's Eve 2021, right? Yep. Or, you can pick whenever. But there's a website called futureme.org where you can literally do this. You type in something and you can set a future date right? So it can be like, okay, I want it by next year, or it can be some milestone. Perhaps you have a milestone birthday. There's some sort of important date for your business. There's some sort of marker in time that you want. So if you do that, you plug it all in and you can email to yourself, and you can make it public or private, but it will send you an email, and you'll probably forget about it, but you'll get it. And you'll be able to kind of review stuff. And what's really helpful in doing something like this is that you can visualize the future you want, right? Nothing is off limits. Yep. It's a letter to yourself, but what would you want to be reading about? Like, and you can write it as if it's already happened. Like, dear Amy, wow, what a year 2021 was. You accomplished X, Y, and Z, or you were able to break free of this, or you left sort of things that didn't serve you in the past, and now you're doing this. So it's very empowering. And those that believe in like visualization and sort of this exercise, this is a very concrete way to do that. Right.
Yes.
So I stumbled across that website and I thought, oh my God, how perfect. And I have done a version of this for something else.
Okay.
I obviously am very technologically savvy, but I still use pen and paper, and I have it taped up on my wall, something where, it's like, I will do this. And then you write it out to yourself. And it was like, and just kind of thinking through the what ifs. Yes. And when I say the what ifs, I mean the good what ifs, because I think there are a lot of people that let the what ifs hold them back.
Yep.
But it's like the possibilities, right? And because you're the one writing the story, you can ensure it has a happy ending. So it's a much more positive thing to do, because even if you fall short of what you thought, something awesome, something else might happen, or you've already made it that far. So I think it's a wonderful exercise.
That's amazing. So I wrote down, I'm going to do mine, addressed to December 1st, 2021. So, when I write my goals, and I mean, I'm a big advocate for people writing their goals, but not like an annual goal. Like, listen, what's going to happen? I'm going to lose 35 pounds. I'm going to sell this much insurance, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to go around and, travel around Europe or whatever. It's like, break down your goals into a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever works for you. For me, it works on a monthly basis. So what I do is, most of the time, I would say probably 3-4 times a year, I would write like January goals, February goals, March goals. Take a screenshot. I write it on my iPhone on the notes. I take a screenshot, so I make sure every day I look at my cell phone, I'm looking at those goals. And that's how, Perfect. But then you go to Disney with your wife and daughter, and then take a nice picture, and now, I want to see that every day. So I mixed it up a little bit. But the fact that one of the things you say, it goes to do not go for the long run. Like, the letter you're saying, write it, it's awesome. But when you set up your goals or your resolutions, make them real, make them something achievable. What would you say to people that say, when you sit down and you write a goal, do it something you cannot reach? Is that something you would recommend somebody to do? Like, I mean, I'm not a huge fan.
I think you want to, like, I'm a fan too of breaking things down. I think there's nothing wrong with setting a highly ambitious goal.
Okay.
I don't think you want to go into it knowing there's no way in hell I'd be able to accomplish that. I mean, I think there's a level of realism, but I am a believe in dreaming big.
Yes,
because if you don't dream big, how are you going to get there? But then I think anything that's so big, like you said, when you can narrow it down, can you break it down? Like, because this is the thing that people don't understand, success and progress, it isn't just one big sweeping gesture and magically overnight things happen. It's always those small steps taken consistently and again and again and again that get you closer to your goals, that help you get there. And it may not be sexy. It may not be like, oh, but I don't want to hear that. I want to have this drama filled, whatever. But it's like, this is the reality, is like, every day you have an opportunity to move closer to your goals or farther away by your choices, by your behaviors, by your mindset, all of these things. So you have the power, you have the choice, but it's really in those sort of micro things rather than the macro. If you master the micro, you will master the macro.
Yep.
I just came up with that.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Make sure you copyright that. No. So I tell everyone, people look at athletes. Just the other day, so I went to the University of Massachusetts for a year, and that was the first time Tom Brady ever won a Super Bowl. And
it's funny. I text with my buddies from UMass all the time. We say, you know what? This dude won a Super Bowl in our last year of college or our junior year, and he's still winning Super Bowls up to a couple of years ago, and we're fat and old, and and he was older than us. I always make that joke because people think about the greatness of somebody like Tom Brady. By the way, I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan, so people don't start writing me and saying, "Oh, you love Tom Brady. We got you. We knew." So I respect him and I love him, and I appreciate his work. And I found out the guy is a vegan. So he's a vegan, 9 months a year doing the same thing over and over, same routine, same diet. And no wonder he's 42 now, and he's
43. I think.
43. Yeah. And he's about, to go to a championship game and then hopefully or probably a Super Bowl. So it's amazing doing the little things one by one. We do the same thing in insurance. The perfect way for your agency to succeed is systems, processes, and you have to be consistent. Do them over and over and over again. And implementation, that's the other thing. So I'm going to eat salad. That's my resolution for 2021 for 300 days. And it's like, I already broke that promise. So yeah, but look for, I'm a huge fan, like you just said, go big or go home. Go all in, aim high, but don't go as high as something unattainable, something you can't reach. So any other tips you want to add up to that?
Well, I would say along the same lines of sort of breaking it down, the other sort of anti-resolution that I'd offered was, instead of, doing an annualized thing, just break it down into weekly intentions. So, the thing about that is, what can I do this, like today, right? But what can I do this week that will get me closer to my goal? And you need to be specific. I think that's important. It's not just, I want to make more money, right? It's not that. It's, what can I do? I can create the ideal customer profile, or I can market and put out content that speaks to my ideal audience. It's very specific actions. And I think the other part of that I've seen people have much success with this is not only setting a weekly intention, but having an accountability partner. So and that person can be simply, you email them and it's like, what did I do? Or you have a jump on the call and they'll say, okay, Ariel, what was your intention of the last week? And you say, well, it was XYZ. And that person then says, okay, did you do that? And you need to be honest, because sometimes life happens. Nobody's perfect, right? But did you do that? And so in that practice of having that weekly, not only setting the weekly intention, but having to report, did I do it or did I not? That gets you into that habit of saying, okay, no. So it's a very much about awareness, right? When you become more self-aware that you're not just moving through the world blindly on autopilot, it's easy to do when you have a million things going on, when you've got, if you have kids and they're homeschooling right now because of, the remote learning, you've got business, all these other things. But when you have to kind of be like, okay, if you're doing things with intention, when you have the awareness, when you have the clarity, what do I want? And then you have that alignment to make sure that what you're doing supports that, then you're going to win. And you do it. You mentioned earlier, my big three are clarity, consistency, and discipline.
Nice.
They're not sexy, but they work.
They work.
Yep. So it's, you gotta do this. And you can, like I said, you can go astray, but you got to come back to it. And it makes sense because things change over time. Is what was your goal once may not still be the right goal. So get some clarity around that. It's okay to change. It's okay to shift. We've all had to learn to pivot, right? And adapt last year. It's okay to do that. But whatever you're working towards, make sure that that's the right goal. That's the right thing for you at this time, in this moment, or for your future, and then align everything behind that. So that will just set you up for success.
That's amazing. That's amazing. One of the biggest mentors in the insurance industry is called Chris Paradiso. And Chris always says there's wins and there's lessons. So you win and you have lessons. Well, obviously you lose, but still don't look at it as a loss. Look at it as a lesson. And that's one thing, I've been taking in very, very, deep into my heart in the last couple of years, ever since I heard it, because that's right. Every day we're going to win. Every day we're going to lose. It happens. Right. But let's just say we're winning and we're learning. So that's the most important part. So, Amy, I can't tell you how awesome this has been. I'm really, really thankful. Listen, people love to follow you, connect with you, and everybody who's going to listen to this podcast, they want to know who you are, follow you. What is the best way for people to actually contact you?
So you can find everything on my website, which is just simply my name.com. So amyblaschka.com. I'm sure you'll have it in the show notes.
Yep.
Lots of consonants, people. Don't get scared. That's what it is. I'm also very active, obviously, as a social media ghostwriter. So I do post and publish all of my own content. Heavy on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm now on Clubhouse too. So if you're there,
nice.
say hi. I'm a
approval.
newbie. I'm there. And then, of course, if you want illuminating bits of wisdom delivered directly to your inbox, please sign up for my newsletter, Illuminate Me. That's amyblaschka.substack.com. And you can find the links to all of that on every bit of social media that I have and on my website as well. And certainly finally, you can also follow me on Forbes, where you can read all of my leadership and career articles there too.
Yes. And I love them. So I will tell everyone, do not even hesitate in signing up for your newsletter. It's a beautiful one. And I thank you for, everything you do. Obviously, I started following you through Forbes and then move on to the other platforms. So you do an amazing job, Amy. This has been so much fun. I want to be respectful of your time. And please promise me we're going to do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
And sometime in the future, when we can travel, when we can do everything safely, I look forward to the day where we can toast over a glass of cab.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. We will for sure. So I'm thinking we should do this again back on December after I read my letter to my future self.
Yes, that's a great idea. Perfect.
That's awesome, Amy. Thank you very much. You have a lovely weekend and we're going to keep in touch.
Thank you.